the Baker Nest pattern book. These are available for purchase on my website. And also, that was weird, a very ugly bug. I apologize for that. You can purchase these on my website. You can purchase just the pattern, or you can also purchase the pattern and the kit, which comes with everything you're gonna need to make this project, excluding the brushes. Okay, so let's continue on. I'm gonna turn the camera down so you can see what we did. If you are just gonna join me, is you're going to make your grid system. So since this is a 12-inch board, we made tick marks at 3 inches, 6 inches, and 9 inches. And we do tick marks at the bottom and 2 tick marks at the top. This is different than how Baker's Nest explains it in the book. She actually does a 4-point grid system, so there's only 4, and then she has you measure in the middle. I just go ahead and do my grid system all at once, and then you switch it and you do your 3, 6, 9 tick mark, 3, 6, 9 tick mark, and then you draw your straight lines. Then the second thing that we did was we numbered these out, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we go from because if you look in the pattern right here, we're gonna go from the upper left to the lower right, and the upper right to the lower left. Okay, so upper left to lower right, and you're just gonna take your straight edge and draw those in. Now also you can, since this is the Crystal Star, you can go from your upper left and go all the way across, okay? Because the second thing that, well, after you do these, what you're going to do as well is you're going to draw in your center block, quilt block, for your star, okay? Because this quadrant right here, these 4 are our center quilt block, and now we have our lines. And a lot of times, like what I like to do is I look at my pattern, okay, and then I say, okay, what am I painting? So here's the pattern that we're doing right now, and I'm going to paint this block, 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 okay? And then I am also going to paint this whole center block in the middle. So we're going to mark that as well. And I just like to do that where I'm going to paint all of those one color, because it really helps me keep track of which ones I'm going to paint. Now, if you notice right here, if you notice right here, this is on stained wood and mine is on painted wood. You can request, just send me a message if you're buying a kit, if you want stained or if you wanted a painted base. Also for tonight, in this Baker Nest, she does give color suggestions, and the color suggestions that she gives are based on Fusion Mineral Paint. And as you know, I also use Fusion Mineral Paint, so that really goes hand in hand. So tonight we're going to do Brook Fusion Mineral Paint, and then also we're going to do plaster. So she only has 1 color on hers. I'm going to do 2 colors, and you're just going to put a little bit of paint. And so this one is Brook, and also I like to show 2 different methods. I like to show freehand, and then I also like to show taped. So for this tutorial, we will do a mixture of both as well. I just think it really helps out because not everybody wants to tape and not everybody wants to do the freehand either. So we're just going to tape off, and I am just making big tapes. The great thing about using painter tape is you can use it over, so don't discard it. So you can use it over unless you, so as you're working throughout this whole entire process, you don't have to keep getting more tape. You can just use the same tape after, of course, after you've painted and the paint has dried, preferably. So all I am doing is I am blocking off with my painter's tape that center block, okay? So I am just completely blocking off for my center block, and I'm going to outside of my draw mark. Now, if you want, for the sake of time, you could have pulled this right here, and we're gonna cut that off at that line, okay? So now I have this one exposed, and then I just block this one off. Okay, so this one right here is available, and this just helps make your painting a little bit quicker, goes faster if you have more things taped off instead of where you have to tape, because each time you tape you need to wait for it to dry, and sometimes it becomes, you know, kind of cumbersome. All I do is I pull my tape back, okay, like that, and then you're just gonna, and if you do this over your pencil lines, you're actually gonna have the line, if you can see that, you're gonna have the line where your pencil line is. So you'd be able to just cut right along that line. Okay, so we're just gonna continue to do that. And if you didn't get it completely on the line, that's okay. Just retape. I will have this one if you are going to be in Iowa. This is a beginner barn quilt. So I will have this one available in my booth in Iowa this weekend. I will be at the Pink Petunia. So I will have this available for sale if you're interested in purchasing this design. And once again, this design is called the Crystal Star. I'm not very good at names of what things are. I'm learning as I go along. I just have fallen in love with these barn quilts. I think they're incredible. When I lived in Pennsylvania, I loved seeing them on the Amish barns, and also I just feel that quilting is part of my family heritage, and then these barn quilts are just taking two things that I love and putting them together. So I love to sew, and I also love to paint. So when you tape off, you're going to want to make sure that your edges are very well pressed down. because the better you have your edge pressed down, the better off you're going to have, for less likely you'll have for bleeds. And what I am doing is I am cutting on my, it's kind of like a chalk line. If you are familiar with if you're familiar, with woodwork, this is very similar to having a chalk line on your tape. This process is a little bit more tedious, taping all of these out, but in the end it does make for a quicker paint process. So it is your personal preference of, do you prefer to spend more time cutting and making sure your taping is more tedious, or do you prefer to spend more time making sure your painting is more tedious? A lot of people generally would prefer for their taping to be tedious, because then they don't have to worry about correcting mistakes when they paint. So, and like I said, hold on to your extra tape marks, because you can reuse them. And sometimes with these tight corners, if you have a corner one like this, it is great, because then one, you can just go along with your corners, but also it just helps get into those tighter corners if you do have them. What's important is to make sure that each area that you're going to be painting is taped, so that when you start painting, you can just paint at one time. So you're not trying to tape and paint at the same time. That does make it very challenging, because then you're waiting for tape to dry. Not tape to dry, I apologize. You're waiting for paint to dry before you can reapply your tape. Now each person has their own method of taping. This is just my preferred method. So if you have a different method of taping, do what you feel most comfortable with. Because I think the creative process is something that is meant to be enjoyable and comfortable for you. Of course, when we're learning, we're going out of our comfort zone, so that can be a little awkward at first, but as long as the majority of the creative process, such as taping, you're comfortable with of how you want to do it, that is what's most important. We all have our own rhyme and reason to our processes. So please find what works for you. We are all unique and learn our own individual ways. I said on the YouTube video, not the YouTube video, sorry, I'm tired. This whole getting dark earlier in the day has been quite an adjustment. This one's being a little stubborn, so I'm going to, there we are. And I think just 2 more to go. That's another process that you can do, is simply fold it back. And if you fold it back, you'll be able to lay it down. You'll be able to cut it at the fold line, and then you can lay it down. And so that's just another process that works. I am here to just give you tips and tricks of what I do and how I discover certain processes working. But like I said before, please do what works best for you. This is gonna be a little awkward right there. You don't have to fold your edges down, just make sure that all of your off the board, but just make sure that your tape edges are very well sealed, okay? I didn't pull that tape very long enough. So after I finish taping everything, we are going to run our finger along the whole process, our taped edges, to make sure that our edges are sealed, and then we will proceed to paint. And when you, like I said, if you do the whole taping, your painting will go a lot quicker. Now we do have one area right there that I need to pull up. We're just going to run our finger over each of these tape edges to make sure that we have a very good seal. And then I do have one other tip that I would like to share with you that I use. Also, the beauty of, I think, with barn quilts is you get to, you can choose the colors that you match your home. They're great for gifts, for you know, friends. They have so much history in them. So it's just a good way of preserving our Americana history, and also just painting the barn quilt is an awesome way to relax at the, you know, if you wanna, at the end of the day. So we're gonna take our brush, we're gonna take our paint, and now that we've gone over all of our edges, now we're gonna take our brush, and I just dab it in, and then this is just blotting off. And the thing that I like to do is always on my board is I go over my paint line, okay? So I am intentionally going over my paint line and painting part of it actually on the tape. Now what this does is it helps me seal my tape, because you're gonna go over this multiple times, probably two, definitely with colors that have a lighter pigment, not as much saturation of pigment in them. You're gonna wanna go over it multiple times, at least two or more. And the lighter colors, as you can see my X marks. So we're gonna want to go over this. So you're gonna do the exterior of your tape lines first, and then you can go in and do your interior part of your quilt block. So this color is Fusion Mineral Paint Brook. It is a lighter green, and it does have a grayish tone to it. It's very, very beautiful. So once again, we're gonna go over our tape part, going over our tape line, part tape and part on our board, and then do exterior first, and then we're gonna fill it in with the interior. Don't worry if you don't have the whole entire thing completely covered, because like I said, we are gonna go over this again. You're gonna wanna cover it, but don't worry if you don't feel like it's, you don't want to use, I guess what I'm trying to say is, you do not want to use more paint to get it a thicker coverage, because more, you're gonna wanna do layers. Layers makes for a better finished product than a thicker paint at the beginning. So I'm just going to continue to finish this, and then I'll be right back. Hi, so I have completed painting that first part, and now what we're gonna do is remove our painter's tape. And like I said, you're gonna want to hold on to this, because then you can use it again. So I just like to put my painter's tape on the side of my board, and then we can use it again. Now you're gonna wanna make sure that before you remove your painter's tape that you've done a second coat. I did my second coat off camera because it's the exact same. You're just gonna paint over your block a second time, and you will do that until it has the desired coverage that you prefer. And if at the end, if you realize, well, it still has some marks on it, no worries, you can simply go over it again, because you can always repaint, or you can tape again and go over it. So as you can see my draw lines. That's no big deal because we're going to use a second color. If this was wood and I did not have a second color in mind, you're going to want to make sure that you use really lighter when you're putting down your grid marks, that you're not pressing so hard, and then also to erase them. Sometimes you can erase them just with the eraser, and other times you need to use a magic eraser, or some people use baby wipes to erase your when you draw your grid lines with your pencil. So I want to show you, if you are going to use an eraser, you literally just erase it. Okay, so you're just going to erase it down. I use the base of this is casement, so that it is casement fusion mineral paint. All the paints that I use are fusion mineral paint, and it is a very great coverage paint. I have noticed that it does like to hold on to dust sometimes, so I do advise putting a top coat on after you're finished. It definitely, if you are planning on having your project outside. Fusion mineral paint does have a top coat built in, but this is just going to give it extra assurity. It won't chip, but it'll help you keep it clean, so you'll be able to wash it in there. So this is actually the Crystal Star. It is complete, but I wanted to add a second color to it, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to add plaster. That was my limestone, I apologize for that. So I love these two colors together. I think they're just really pretty. So the second one, I am going to show you how I just go over freehand, because I told you I would show you both applications. So freehand, you're just gonna make sure that you have limited amount of paint on your brush, enough paint that you can still pull it along. Probably going to be sticking to my tape the whole entire time. You can pull it along your paint mark, but that's the first. Okay, I can't do this, sorry. Cannot keep sticking to tape. I just wanted to show you, if you're going to save your tape because you're going to retape for your second layer, that's just a great way to do it. Okay, so you're gonna take your paint. You can either dab off here or you can dab off on your surface, but you're just gonna push the tip of your brush. Can you see that? It's so hard. Okay, let's try this. You're gonna put the tip of your brush up against your other paint line, and you're just gonna pull across, okay? So literally just pull across. And the most successful thing that I have found in this process is if my elbows are secure. So when your elbows are secure on your body, your hand has less chance of it shaking. So that's also what my art teacher taught me. You're gonna want your project to be in front of you. So you're gonna kind of sit square with your project. And I always think having it flat on the surface is a lot easier, because it's easier, especially if you're going to use freehand, because then you can pull a lot easier and stay stable. On the flat surface, you have a lot of things to anchor yourself, and besides putting your barn quilt on an easel, if you're up on an easel, you have more of an opportunity to have fluid movements, which is great when you're doing canvas painting of landscapes and things of that nature. But when you're wanting a very stable hand, you're going to want to make sure that you have an anchored source, anchored elbow, and also anchored platform. So there are those two colors. I think they look beautiful together, and we're just going to go along and finish our project. Now, if you have these tight corners, you can get in there with just the tip of your brush, or you can get another smaller brush. I just go ahead and get in there with the tip of my brush. It is whatever you feel comfortable with, but you can use the tip of your brush as long as your brushes are not overly loaded. You don't want an excessive amount of paint. With Fusion Mineral Paint, a little paint goes a very long way, so you don't need a whole lot loaded on your brush for this process. So you're just gonna pull it along your paint line, and it kind of, the paint, since the first layer was done with tape, it kind of does have a lip to it a little bit. If you notice, there's some voids that you have, don't worry about it. You can go back and correct all of the errors at the end. Nothing is perfect, so you can always go back and do your corrections at the very end. But we're just going to continue on and do this. And so I've shown you the technique, so I'll be right back. Okay, so I have finished hand painting the rest of the blocks, and I just wanted to show you really quick. If you need to do a little bit of touch-ups, just take your brush, and I just like to have just the edge of it, and you're just going to push up against where you need to make your corrections. Very little paint goes a very long way, so don't overload your brush. I think that's the biggest tip that I can give everybody, is any paint project that you have, don't overload your brush, because going over it is better than having an overloaded brush and having globs on your project. So there we have it. This is the Crystal Star done in plaster, and then also Brook Fusion Mineral Paint. Thank you so much for joining me, and hope to see you soon with Connection Through Creativity. Okay, bye.